We start getting these here. All right. You ready to go there?
Yeah.
A few more seconds. Ready, Susan?
Yes, sir.
All righty. Okay, ready on the left, ready on the right. Let's call the Council of Governments meeting to order on Wednesday, December 3rd. We're at the Board of Supervisors Chambers at Government Center in San Andreas. I would invite you all to join me, rise, and say the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, very good. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. These are items 1 through 5, including the correspondence. There's some action items included. Consent agenda items are generally considered to be routine and non-controversial and are generally enacted by one member or by one motion of the board unless any member of the council or staff or public want to pull an item from consent for further discussion prior to the vote. So we will do that now. Does any member of the board want to pull an item from the consent agenda prior to the vote? Any member of staff or the public want to pull an item from the consent agenda before we take action? None noted. The chair is open to a motion on the entirety of the consent agenda.
So moved?
Councilmember Ponte moves the item. Second by Councilmember Morris. I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None noted. That passes unanimously. Okay, so now we will go to our regular agenda. First item is number 6. This is public comment. Public comment items are for any member of the public to address the board on an item that already is not scheduled for discussion or possible action by the board. So I'm going to limit the discussion to 5 minutes per person, 15 minutes per topic. Anybody that wants to step to the podium and make a public comment this evening to the board is welcome to do so at this time. Okay, there we are. We have one more. How are you doing, Jake?
Fine, thank you. My name is Jake Copeland, resident of San Andreas, chairman and board members. This is the first time that I've been to the court at night in quite a long time. And the one thing that I noticed when I was coming, after I parked the car down in front, I noticed that it was pretty dark out. And so Donna and I, my wife, got out of the car and we walked up towards the main section where all the stairs are coming up into the courtyard there. And I realized this place is really dark. This is a place where someone could fall very easily, especially in the rain, because when I was walking up, I couldn't even see the stairs. And then after I left, I went back down, and it was even worse because it was raining pretty good and it was getting slippery. So I'm just bringing that to the board tonight because I think it's something that you should look at and maybe install a couple street lights right there. And then the public bus also is picked up, and it has one little light on the building, and it needs some lighting for people that are getting on and off the bus right there where the curb is. It's real easy to miss the curb or the sidewalk, and so we don't need any liabilities. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jake, for your consideration. Anyone else under public comment this evening? Okay, well, let's go on to item number 7 then. This is notice of a public hearing. This is a revision to the update for the cycle for the regional transportation plan from 5 years to 4 years, and this is brought to us by our Executive Director, Melissa Eaves. Would you lead the discussion, please?
Thanks. Staff recommends the council adopt resolution 15-15, changing the schedule for the RTP, Regional Transportation Plan update, from 5 years to 4 years. The California Department of Housing and Community Development has made available this opportunity to change our RTP update schedule. This modification in our schedule is beneficial to both our city and county, as letters of support have been provided for this action. According to Government Code 65080BM, B2M, a public hearing is required before the council considers this item. Staff recommends opening the public hearing, after which point I'm happy to ask any questions or concerns that the council or public may have, and then I request approval of the resolution as mentioned.
Okay, are there any questions or comments from the board at this time before I open the public hearing? Again, I just note this was already approved by the Board of Supervisors on the 11th of, or the 13th of November. So this is more of a ministerial action by my viewpoint, but that's neither here nor there. We're going to have a public hearing and we'll proceed through with the process. So with that, I'm going to open the public hearing and ask any member of the public that wants to step forward and address the board on this item to do so now. No public comments on this item? Okay, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the board and Melissa for final comments.
I'm happy to entertain any questions that the council may have. And just for further clarification, this item is scheduled for the city council agenda later in December as well, before the December 31st deadline to the state.
Okay, any questions or comments on this item? Chair is open to a motion.
So moved.
Councilmember Gomes moves the item.
Second.
Seconded by Councilmember Ponte. I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None noted. That passes unanimously as well. Okay, item number 8, the citizen member appointment process. I'm going to turn the gavel over to the vice chair as I am a public member, and she will run this portion of the meeting. Actually, the 3 public members at this time can step away if they so choose. We're not actually being considered, so you don't have to, but I'll just kind of push back and let them, let the elected members run this portion of the meeting. If you want to step down, we can do that too, Jim. You're going, I'll go.
Okay, staff recommends the council hear presentations from the interested citizen member applicants. Staff further suggests consideration of the applications and appointment of 1 citizen member. Staff has been notified by applicant Mr. Weber that he was unable to attend this evening's meeting due to a previous commitment. So the council may postpone this decision and the interview of the applicants until February, at which time he will be available to meet with each of you. We do have our applicant here, Mr. Cantilino, who is available to take your questions and provide his statement of interest if you so choose. So from staff's perspective, you may interview the candidate that is here, postpone your decision until you have an opportunity to hear from Mr. Weber. You are also free to make your decision tonight as well based on the information you have about the applicants. So I will turn it back to you, Vice Chair.
Okay. So what is the pleasure of the council? Would you like to hear the applicant that is here tonight or postpone?
I have one question. In the event that we had both applicants here, are they each interviewed privately where the other applicant leaves the room, or do they enjoy the benefit of the dialogue between?
They definitely, our history has been that they enjoy the dialogue, the benefit of the dialogue in between. So typically we invite the applicants up, they give a brief statement of their interests, they tell the council a little bit about themselves, their qualifications, and why they're interested in the position. We also then have an opportunity for the council to engage them with a few questions, more specifics about maybe their education or qualifications, or what is it that's bringing them to the Calaveras Council of Governments. We do that in open forum with both applicants present, and that's been the history of the council for the past many years.
Okay. Well, if it's convenient with Mr. Catalano, I would certainly like to see us continue this so that both applicants can be present and participate equally during the process.
I agree.
I would support that. I'd like to be able to do this tonight, but I can understand time conflicts.
Yeah.
So I think having both applicants here at the same time would be beneficial.
Okay.
Do we know if Mr. Catalano can return in February?
I can.
You can?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Okay. So we will continue this item until our February meeting, which is, what date is that?
Which is February.
February 7th, 2015. Thank you. I'll turn the meeting back to our chair.
Okay, then we're going to move on then to item number 9. This is the county report. Mr. Packinger, you're up.
Good evening, Robert Packinger, Department of Public Works. The county has completed the right-of-way agreement phase of the 1226 intersection improvements in Valley Springs. Last week, the board approved the final 3 right-of-way agreements. With that, all the right-of-way agreements are now in escrow or closed. The escrow has closed on a couple of them. The next phase of the project involves a lot of paperwork with Caltrans. We need to submit requests for authorization for construction and right-of-way certification documents. That takes some time. We also need to submit a maintenance agreement with Caltrans. That's going to go to the Board of Supervisors in the coming week. As that is occurring, we hope to be working on removal of the underground storage tanks that impede the progress of PG&E lines to be replaced under the area. So that should be happening this winter. The hope then is, once we receive the approvals from Caltrans, we'll be going forward with the solicitation of bids later in the winter, which is a time that all the contractors are lining up their work. And then as soon as we can, go in there and make proceed with the improvements beginning of summer, late spring, as early as we can. We'd like to get that done. So that's the progress there with the 1226 project. The Wagon Trail Quarterly Report is submitted to you. I signed the certification for the environmental documents so that Caltrans can proceed with their review. And those are the projects that are occurring right now, where there's the most work occurring. Right here in front of State Route 49, Mountain Ranch Road, Docking Engineering is trying to complete the work that had been started some time ago by David Evans and Associates. We're working with PG&E to try to determine what's the best course of action to work with them to do the undergrounding of the utilities along Mountain Ranch Road. That's proven to be a little difficult because of coordinating the work. Something has to come first. If they put the lines on the power poles, that impedes other work that we plan on doing, so we'll see how we resolve that one. That's going to be an interesting one. I noted that in correspondence, the COG has submitted a letter of support for Common Ground. We've also submitted letters of support for the Common Ground effort. We strongly support them. We believe that there is room for them, for that operation, to help with mobility of all within the community. Thank you.
Questions, Bob?
When you said that you signed off on the environmental documents for the wagon trail, is that the environmental documents for the entire, all 2 or 3 phases that are outstanding?
Right now, the way the project is being processed, they're looking at the entire length.
Right.
Later, when we are going to try to do some construction, we're going to try to phase that construction.
So the ED covers everything then?
Right now, yes.
Correct.
I have a question on Wagon Trail, Robert. So it was submitted to Caltrans, and I see here we're looking at Caltrans coming back around spring of 2015 with their review. Is that at that point we have another kind of open house situation to where that document is then brought to the public for their review and comment?
Yes, there has to be that round has to happen.
Okay.
The public will have to have their chance at that point to weigh in and make comments.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this item? Okay, thank you, Robert. Let's go on to item number 10, which is the transit report. Ms. Mullen, you're up.
Thank you. Deborah Mullen from Public Works, Calaveras Transit. My first item is the Phase 3 bus stop improvement project, which consists of 3 bus shelters at existing bus stops in San Andreas on State Route 49, in front of the post office, Treats, and the credit union, and 2 benches in Murphy's. Actually, each stop will have 2 benches, 4 benches. And the project bids opened, bids went out yesterday, were published in the paper, the notice to bidders, and so far we've had 14 hits on the plans and specs for that. Most of them, a lot of them are plan rooms, but still we have a few contractors, and I think it'll be a good, bids will be due December 23rd. We had originally hoped they would be a few days sooner and be due the 19th, but the newspaper published early because of the holiday, so it was already printed at the time we sent them the notice. So on the bus shelter project, anybody has any questions? Okay. Quarterly report, you have the first quarter report for 14-15, and it shows that ridership is down and kind of all things along with that. But from last year's report, and we are in the process of reviewing the numbers from last year, so we might be bringing forward a kind of a revised reporting of last year. So inline the first quarter comparison with last year, looks like the fare box recovery ratio was reduced from 9.39 to 9.29.
Okay. Yes, Jim.
I was, Deborah, particularly struck by the Route 2 figures.
Yeah.
The $75, $76 cost per passenger. I don't know that I'm smart enough to know the right answer, but there has to be a more efficient...
The answer that we're looking ahead at will be serving that route with a system of vans that may be some kind of on-demand or reservation. We're looking at that because you're right, that's what's driving that cost up, is those big buses running up the hill and nobody getting on them. And when there's just a few people to begin with, when half of them don't go, 2 of the 4 people don't take the bus, it causes a dramatic drop in the performance measures. So we're going to be, well, and the ridership changes with the school schedule. Sometimes there's somebody enrolled at Columbia and they get on that bus every day, and sometimes there's not.
Is common ground, if they get their grant, is that a potential solution to this? Apparently, I imagine...
Well, they're going to be focusing on disabled and senior populations. So the students, I think that we'll be able to do that with the vans and, you know, people going out to shop, or this depends on who they are. But I think together we can coordinate that effort to serve that group, that area, without spending too much.
I think just to reiterate Deborah's point and Robert's point, the partnership with Common Ground, I think, will be very beneficial, and it's working together in partnership to provide these services, because transit can't be all things to all people. And so they do very well the fixed route service. We can see the efficiency and the improvement and the growth in those routes. And so then how do we all work together, maybe utilizing our nonprofit resources to provide those specialized services that really is not Calaveras Transit's line of work. So I absolutely support the idea that it's partnership and it's coordination of services. And I'm happy, that Robert and Public Works is supporting the 5310 application, because I think it'll bring a lot of opportunity to the senior and disabled population who have a hard time utilizing Calaveras Transit services.
Question? Deborah, in the fiscal year 13, 14, I know you're new to this. Didn't we have a lunchtime route also going up to Mountain Ranch for Route 2 and a lunchtime route going down to Copper?
I believe that those were cut, there was kind of a considerable cutting of service in an effort to reduce costs, but it had the
I think a ripple
concurrent effect of reducing service and people. So we might be looking at reinstating certain routes, maybe not all the way to West Point, maybe to Mountain Ranch Railroad.
I think the short-range transit plan will also
They're
help
going to be helping
Deborah
with
in
that.
providing some guidance and some structure for reevaluating the routes and looking at areas like Route 2. And I think the route to Copperopolis is another one that county staff has really struggled with for a number of years, not just this year in particular. So I think with the short-range transit plan and the recommendations from that, we'll have a lot more answers.
Have a comment for Deborah. I was made aware of one more incident where the transit schedule, or they were not providing service in sync with Columbia College, and that was the day before Thanksgiving. I guess the transit system is closed that day, and yet there are classes.
It was open.
It was?
We're running.
Yeah, only Columbia, or only Columbus Day was the issue.
I know, yeah, we talked about Columbus Day. Okay, I'm sorry, that's my mistake then.
But if there are other days, because in general, except for the Columbus Day that we are going to change, we have coordinated with the county holiday schedule.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know,
You know, since
maybe we can
via
look
these
in.
reports, that is the most used route and most
Yeah.
financially successful route. Need to do everything to
That's a good
keep that
point.
ridership.
And I did want to mention also that Stuff the Bus food drive is going really well, and some of you have participated in that, and they've so far garnered 4,600 pounds of food, 159 turkeys, 9 hams, and more than $1,700. So I encourage you to help stuff it, or even to help ask for. Okay?
Very good, thank you, Deborah. All right. Okay, Mr. Hannum, you're up. City report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave Hannum, Planning Director for City of Angels. Got a couple of things. One is regarding the Partnership Planning Grant. I mean, we're up and running. We've had an advisory council meeting. We've had stakeholders meetings. We are continuing to reach out to stakeholders. We've identified another 3 or 4 that we'll be meeting with here next week. And it looks like we're on our way. So it looks like so far we've had some good comments. We've had some good input, and I think that's going to be a major thing for the city. The second thing is our Murphy's Grade Road project. As some of you are aware, we hired a new engineering tech who really is she's a PE, and is starting plans on our Murphy's Grade Road sidewalk project. So we're moving forward on that. So that's one of the nice things of not having to go out of house. We can do that now in house. So we're happy about that. Our city council voted to start the process for the relinquishment of the 49 bridge, the 449 bridge. So the city will be working with Caltrans to start the relinquishment process on that project. And we completed the PSR and the PID document. So council recommendation was to do that. And let's see, what else? And the city is looking also to apply for another sustainability grant for our east side, northeast section of town, kind of coordinate what's happening on the northwest side with the partnership planning grant. So we're moving forward in trying to apply for a grant for that. And we will be looking at probably another round of the FLAP grant, hopefully for our Angels Camp Master Plan Trail. So there's a lot happening here in the next few weeks and getting that stuff going. So we'll be working with COG on that, and so we'll go forward with there. So unless there's any questions about any any items. I do want one last thing. I don't know if you probably have a report on our regarding the CIP update, and you'll see a lot of zeros under the city side. Just to let the council know, we've expended approximately $1,800 on our Murphy's Grade Road project, and more monies now that we've got an engineer. You'll be seeing. She's going to be taking over the updating of that CIP, so you'll start seeing money go, because we have already constructed the sidewalks, so we've spent that $550,000 plus some. So I think we're okay. I just want to give the council an update on that. So unless there's any questions on anything, I'd have to answer any questions, what's going on. So. All right, thanks.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, your turn, Mr. Gidney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Gedney, Caltrans District 10, rounding out the round of reports here. I'd just like to revisit the NHS issue and remind you that we're working on the State Route 4 application, and Melissa has prepared all the background documentation, has gone out and partnered with San Joaquin COG and StanCOG and gotten letters of support. So we're now just, our district director is going to probably sign a letter tomorrow. We have one minor little thing to correct in the narrative, and then we'll get the district director's support and hustle that up to headquarters and get State Route 4 in the NHS. The reason I wanted to bring that up is it doesn't seem on the surface that it's really doing much, but I can assure you that there's a lot of changes in the works at the state level. NHS is one component of a new policy really that's being presented or forwarded by the state. It's following a model that was begun in the state of Pennsylvania through something called the Smart State Transportation Initiative. What they did was they revisited their investments of transportation dollars due to the declining revenues and decided that it would be best to follow a fix-it-first philosophy, take a look at the existing infrastructure and investments and try to repair what they have rather than investing in new capacity increasing projects. And I think California is following the lead that was set by Pennsylvania, and we're initiating that as well at the state level. The reason I bring that up is later on you have a report on the Interregional Transportation Strategic Plan, and just wanted to, if I could draw your attention to that last, I know you'll be looking at it later, but I just wanted to draw your attention to the last pie chart on that report that Melissa has provided for you. What we have is we have a series of reports that the state is generating right now. We're looking at a consolidated freight management plan as well as the Interregional Transportation Strategic Plan. The reason we're trying to do that is get priority lists of projects throughout the state that we could advance to the legislature and local agencies to try to support new revenue initiatives. You've heard about the potential for a VMT tax, and that's also tied with another issue that you have here on your agenda with the new Senate Bill 743. There's a lot of stuff in the works right now, and it doesn't really look like much, but it's all kind of moving toward the same goal of trying to do more with less. And I would say that because on that pie chart, we do have a lot less than we used to have. When you look at the STIP, the red acronym at the top with ITIP in parens, ITIP stands for the Interregional Transportation Improvement Plan, and that is the only discretionary money that Caltrans has, and it represents 1% of the entire state transportation budget. 1%. That's our discretionary money. That's the money that everybody thinks that we have a lot of that can help match your RIP dollars. You can see that's from the last STIP cycle, 1% of the entire state highway account. The orange slice, that big fat orange slice in there, that's sales tax revenue. I don't want to harp on that again, but I do think that that's the future. That's where the power is, and we've talked about that in the past. I want to follow up and say we recognize that the state has to start working toward efficiencies. We have a new mission vision, and a part of our new vision is to develop performance metrics and be a performance-driven organization to try to account for our dollars and be as efficient and effective as we can in delivering our services and products. We're going to be coming out next year with performance metrics in every function throughout the department to try to align all of our functions with our new mission vision. And I think once we can help credibly provide that information to you as local agencies and local elected officials, we hope that it will help you to make the case to help to develop either more local revenue in the form of a sales tax or support state-based revenue in the form of maybe a VMT tax, model it after what's going on in the state of Oregon right now, or some other potential proposals that are being floated around. I just say that because we don't talk about this a lot, and I think it's important, though, to get the word out that we are trying to change, we are trying to get better. So I don't have a lot more to report this afternoon or this evening. I do want to commend Melissa for all the work she's done on NHS. I think that's fundamental in what we're talking about. Get some of the routes that are important for this county on the national highway system so it becomes eligible for some of that fix-it-first money. After we get done with 4, I think you directed us to start working on 12 and a portion of 26, and we'd be happy to follow up with that. So if there's any questions on any of that, or if I could follow up with any information, I'd be happy to, and address any other concerns you may have.
So you said after you're done with 4?
Yes, well, we'll be done with 4 tomorrow, I hope. Once we get the letter from our district director, we're going to send the package up to headquarters, and then they'll forward it to FHWA for their review and approval. And at that point, Melissa and I can hit the ground running on 12.
Ladies first. Yeah, we'll go to Debbie first and then John.
When you talk about the 1%, is there a dollar amount on the average you can talk about?
Melissa probably has that on top of her head.
It's still a big number.
Yeah, I think generally we talked about $300 million being available in the last cycle.
I think that, John, if I remember, they said there was more money statewide for the active transportation program than there was for the ITIP program, whatever that number was.
Yeah, you're right. It's 1.5% for the, or 1.4% for the active transportation program, which is bikeways, trails, pedestrian facilities. It represents more than the discretionary money that's available to Caltrans. And that's competitive based. So what Dave was talking about going for grants, there's more money available for competitive grants than there is discretionary right now. But I think, to answer your question, I think, if I remember correctly, it's around $300 million that was available last cycle, and I think I've mentioned to you before, there was $10 billion in needs that came through.
Thank you.
John?
Being that we're a rural area, the vehicle mileage tax, or the VMT, really is not where I would see us wanting to go. The gasoline tax, although we went to that presentation at the Council Vineyard this last spring, where the gentleman spoke to the effect that because taxes themselves are so frowned upon in being raised by the legislature, that the gas taxes have been stagnant for, I think, 2 decades. I've been watching, certainly, and everyone else has seen too, gas prices dropping down below $3. When we had that conversation back in the spring, gas, I think, was pushing $4. The variability and the volatility in gas tax, or in the gas prices, is so much more than just the tax revenues that they're talking about, 10 or 15 cents a gallon. Is there anything that we can do as a COG to have a discussion and maybe make a recommendation to increase the gas tax versus a VMT tax effort?
Yes, I think this region you have common interests with other mountain counties, your partners. Amador, Tuolumne, certainly in our district, feel the same way. Long-distance commuters are the ones who are going to suffer with the VMT tax. If I could just mention to you the model that's being followed in Oregon, the VMT tax, as it's being presented, is a differential tax. What they do, they've got a pretty complicated system in place where the odometer readings will be reported, but once it's calculated at what the, I think it's a nickel per mile tax that Oregon has, but it would be a differential. They'd calculate that against the odometer readings and then also see what the average gas tax that particular person would be paying, and they'd take the differential. If they were traveling more than they, according to VMT taxation, than they were paying in gas tax, then they'd pay that differential. That's kind of the way that model's working. It's pretty complicated. But anyway, to get back to your concern, in the more metropolitan areas, I think they're looking at this, a little bit, they're a little bit more positive about the VMT tax because they don't travel as far, you know, and I think that also ties in with this new SB 743 legislation that's changing the way we analyze impacts. It's going away from level of service and it's going toward VMT, and that's also feeding into this this movement toward infill development and smart growth and more compact growth and away from sprawl. That's really kind of the effort that's being made here. So, but you're right, your region is a little bit different. Calaveras, Amador, and mountain regions have longer distance travel, and that's your prerogative. Contact your legislatures and make that case plain. You know, again, it's a political battle that's going to be fought.
Any other comments? Well, I appreciate your continuing to focus on self-help counties too. I mean, if there was a way, that would be my dream to figure out a way to be a self-help county.
Yeah.
But it's so difficult as a rural county to raise taxes at all and then to self-tax.
And that's, thank you, Chairman Stein. That's why I bring that up, is I know that there's a lot of anti-government sentiment, that there's a lot of waste, and so I want to make clear that the Caltrans in the state is making a concerted effort to try to get in front of that and clean up our own house. And when the gentleman mentioned coming up the stairs and not having streetlights, where are we going to get the money for streetlights? You know, we have a big wish list, but when we talked about the sales tax measure, we also have a good model to follow in Madera County, where they took recommendations on projects that are needed in the county, and they had a citizens advisory committee developed who compiled that list, and they were able to have a real focused plan to put before the voters, and that was effective.
Right, right.
So I know there's a lot of pieces that have to come together in this.
Well, keep saying that, because I've been involved with other counties when I was at CSAC and seen the benefit of other self-help counties that go through the, through the brain damage basically to come up with a special tax for that. But once they do, it is very beneficial.
Very powerful.
Yeah, very beneficial. Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, let's move on then to item number 13. Melissa Radji was going to introduce resolution fiscal year number 15, fiscal year 15-14, approving health, dental, and vision employee benefits for the 2015 calendar year.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff recommends the council approve to continue the current health, dental, and vision employee contributions as approved last year at this time. They're also incorporated into our policies and procedures manual. The new rates are within the operations budget, so we would not need to amend the operations budget. So I would ask the council to approve this action.
Okay, questions or
Happy to answer
comments?
any questions.
Okay, is there any public comment on this item? Chair is open to a motion.
So moved.
Okay, Councilmember Heminger moves the item.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Morris. I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None noted. That passes unanimously. Okay, Melissa, you're still up on item number 14.
Yes.
This is a resolution number fiscal year 15-16, approving local transportation funds for County Public Works Department as the transit operator. So this is a claim basically on LTF funds.
Yes, and as you can see in the staff report in the recommendation box, there's the conditional items 1 through 6. COG staff is recommending the approval of a conditional claim, and as I stated, the conditions are identified in 1 through 6. Items of concern also identified in my staff report have been discussed with city staff, county public works staff, the county auditor, controller, and the system is currently operating at a deficit. And under these circumstances, staff, COG is recommending that we approve this conditional claim in the amount of $159,480. I received notification that the state controller's report was submitted, and therefore the claim is eligible, but the county auditor, we didn't have time to review and certify. So if the council has any questions?
Okay, so it's a conditional approval.
Yes.
Right, okay. Questions or comments on this item? Is there public comment on this item? Yes, Bob.
Robert Packinger, Public Works. We reviewed the conditions that COG staff have prepared for this item. We have absolutely no problem with any accountability or transparency. We owe it to the taxpayers to get this thing done right. And we'll be working on that with the auditor, and we'll get it right.
Thank you, Robert. Any other public comment?
Dave Hannum, City of Angels.
Yep.
Yeah, when we read the staff report and we've talked to the county and the city is now going to be a little more involved in this process. In the past, the city's kind of, in regards to transit, has kind of not necessarily taken a back seat, but just to kind of let hasn't really participated as much as we can. And just to let the council know that we'll be meeting, with the county more regularly to see what's happening in terms of LTF, since out of the 845,000, actually 84,000 is our contribution to the program. So we want to make sure that our money is being spent wisely, and we want to help them where we can. If there are things that we can help them with, we'd be happy to do that. And the city's in agreement with the conditions. We feel that they're fair. The county needs to be accountable, and I think it's a good start to move forward in the next direction. So that's all I have.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Dave. Any other public comment on this item? Okay, Chair is open to a motion. Oh, yes.
I
go
have
ahead,
one
Russ.
question.
Yeah.
On the concerns page, it'd be the one to the third bullet down. No, excuse me, it's the second bullet down, where it refers to the staff will start a 4-year penalty phase calculation pending the result. Tell us, what does that mean?
As Deborah announced in her update for quarterly reports, the state controller's report was completed and submitted on November 14th. As part of that, the calculation came out that the fare box recovery for 13-14 was 9.483, I think. So they reported in 13-14 that they had met fare box recovery. So at this point, they have not. They are going to go back and review those 4 quarters of transit reports, but we still need to wait for the completion of the annual TDA audit, because they may be able to take out that new route that is dragging the system down, and they still may be able to meet it, but we won't be able to know that until Richardson Company.
Okay, but if you don't meet it, what is the penalty? You pay,
There's a penalty.
you can recover just fewer funds, is that it?
There's a 4-year penalty cycle, well, 3-year penalty cycle under the TDA. So basically it gives them the base year, whether or not they didn't make it. They actually don't get penalized until it's technically the 4th year. Historically, we've never had to penalize the system because they technically claim less than what they're eligible for anyway. So there's never been an amount that we've withheld. But we go through the process, we determine the penalty amount, and as the transit system grows, or as the operations budget grows, and they potentially reach that limit of eligibility, in the event we would withhold funds, and then a contribution from county general fund at that point would be required. They fell out of the penalty cycle last year when the Council of Governments allowed the Article 8 filing and adopted a local fare box recovery ratio of 9%. They met the 9%. And so at that point, they fell out of the penalty determination. That was the final year. If they hadn't made it, they would have received a penalty. So now we start the clock again.
Okay.
Yeah. And so they technically have 4 years, that if at any point they do make the fare box recovery ratio, then we start again the next year. And we want to really, the state controller's report was based on the financial information provided by the county auditor. We want to go through the TDA audit process to see if there are any exceptions that can be removed from that. Melissa mentioned the new route, anything under TDA that allows us to exclude those costs that might inch them closer to that 10% for box recovery. So we don't want to report that they haven't made it until we get that TDA audit and we see what exceptions there are. We did want to make this information available though, because as the quarterly reports were provided to the council, It was stated in public that we had made the fare box recovery. We now have information that contradicts that.
When do we expect the TDA audit?
Well, in our packet, you guys just approved a 90-day extension, so
Okay.
hopefully at our February meeting, we'll have both COGS and Calaveras Transit, the city non-transit and the county's non-transit.
So the
which have excess.
clock is ticking now?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions? Chair is open to a motion on this item.
I'll move to approve, let's see, what is,
We're on item number,
no, the resolution number?
1516?
okay,
Yeah, resolution 15-16.
okay. Councilmember Combs moves the item.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Edson. I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None noted. That passes unanimously. Okay, item number 15. Melissa, continue on. This is a resolution fiscal year 15-17, approving the state transit assistant for Calaveras County Public Works as a transit operator. So this is a claim as well, previous to the same motion.
Yes, Mr. Chair. And the same with LTF are the same items and conditions we're facing with this claim. COG staff is recommending the approval of a conditional claim in this instance also. This dollar amount would be in the amount of $108,624. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Any other questions on this item? Public comment on this item? I would assume the comments are the same as before. Okay, we'll just ditto those comments and make sure that they are reflected in the record. Any other comments, public or otherwise? Chair is open to a motion on this item.
So moved.
Councilmember Edson moves the item.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Morris. I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None noted. That passes unanimously as well. Okay, item number 16, Public Transportation Modernization Improvement and Service Enhancement Program. This is the PTMISEA resolution. So we've got 3 action items, A, B, and C. Do you want to take them concurrently, or do you want to speak about each one, Melissa?
Well, I'd ask that we approve them one at a time. They are all connected, but
Okay.
if we do not approve the first one, therefore we can't approve the second one
Okay.
and the third one.
That's fine.
So the first one, staff is recommending the adoption of the revised PTMISEA program expenditure plan. This is the plan and the worksheet that identifies all of the transit capital projects. This has been worked on and collaborated with Calaveras Transit, the Public Works Department, the City of Angels, and COG. And we would ask for the council to approve this expenditure plan. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, so this is resolution number fiscal year 15-12, approving the revised program expenditure plan for PTMISEA. Questions or comments on this item? Is there public comment on this item? Chair is open to a motion.
So moved.
Okay, Councilmember Ponte,
I'll second.
second by Councilmember Colm. I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None noted. That passes unanimously. We'll move to item number B, which is a minute order amending the subrecipient agreement and revise the transit capital project list.
Yes, so the subrecipient agreement that was approved by the council and the board of supervisors in July had an Exhibit A, which identified transit capital projects that would be utilizing these PTMISEA funding. Now that we have revised the project list, we need to revise the Exhibit A. So staff is asking for approval on this Amendment 1, and the only thing that we are amending is the Exhibit A. The Board of Supervisors will be hearing this same item on December 9th. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to.
Okay, so we take an action previous to it going to the Board of Supervisors then?
Yes.
Okay.
And the new Exhibit A is the one shown on page 9?
Yes. This item that we approved in the A will now be the Exhibit.
Right. Okay. Questions or comments? Is there public comment on this item? Okay, Chair is open to a motion on 16B.
So moved.
Councilmember Ponte moves the item.
Second.
Councilmember Morris seconds the item. I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None noted. That passes unanimously as well. We'll move on to 16C, Resolution Fiscal Year 15-13, approving the PTMISEA allocation instructions for the bus purchase project totaling $149,863.75.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This item, COG staff is asking for the approval of allocation instructions in the amount of $149,863. This project is identified in the approved expenditure plan that we just approved. The Calaveras Transit and Public Works has submitted a claim, and I would ask the council to approve that. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I'm just surprised as one government entity has to pay sales tax to another government entity. There's $9,000 in sales tax on this invoice.
9,000?
There's no exemption for the transit district?
Oh, I don't have the invoice attached. The sales tax that the count, they would be out the money, and since it's covered under this Prop 1B funding, I would ask that to be covered.
I only think that one cent. I don't think there is an exemption. I'll check it again.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Okay, good catch, though, good try, Les.
We're just passing money from hand to hand.
That pie chart that we saw earlier, going to 1.01%.
Since it's a vehicle, isn't 1% coming back to us?
Is there any public comment on this item? Debbie, do you have a comment?
I do. Is this the bus that we currently have, that we have received? I can't recall.
Yeah, we've received 2 buses.
Okay.
I just needed allocation instructions for this one because the previously approved resolution covered the other one.
Okay.
So we have received these 2 buses.
2 buses.
I'm not sure if they're in operation. Last I heard, they were being evaluated by the new fleet manager.
Going through an
They went back, didn't
inspection.
they?
You know, at last month's meeting, I reported that both of them were shipped out again after our fleet manager's inspection because he found some flaws and things that needed repair. And one of those we've gotten back, but the other one, somebody backed into it in the parking lot of the body shop, a mobile home, and so now it's waiting for parts for a new bumper.
Where?
French Camp, Delta Trucking. So every day I So it was in the body shop for a scratch.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
Any other comments on this item? Okay, the chair is open to a motion.
So moved.
Okay, Councilmember Edson moves the item. Second by Councilmember Morris. I'll call for the vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None noted. Okay, we'll move on to item number 17. This is brought to us by our Executive Director, Melissa Eads. If you'd like to introduce the topic, please.
First, I'd just like to thank John for the discussion on this item. I appreciate the background and the information on the process from a state perspective. We are working with our friends at Alpine, Amador, Tuolumne, and Calaveras. Staff is recommending the council authorize the chair to sign the 2 letters that we've included. As John mentioned, Caltrans is currently in the process of updating their ITSP, and they are conducting public workshops right now, and they anticipate releasing a draft for CTC consideration in spring of 2015. In anticipation of the update, as mentioned, we're working with our partner agencies. First, we'd like to promote State Route 4 and identify that as a potential focus route. You'll notice in one of the attachments we've given you, there's a map of the focus route development strategy from the previous ITSP, and you'll notice those key statewide corridors. And then also I'd just like to point out, as John mentioned, the 1% of funding that we are really competing with the rest of the state. And I think those 2 pictures really depict the demands and then the little limited amount of money that we are competing against. Nonetheless, State Route 4 is the region's #1 priority project. We are advocating for it relentlessly and not passing up any opportunity to send a letter to the state to let them know how important this corridor is to our region. And then I'd also like the letter, again, that mentions our partner agencies, and we're advocating for inclusion of a policy that allows for funding RIP and ITIP partnerships with rural agencies. So those are the two letters that we've identified, and so I'm happy to entertain any questions or comments that you might have.
Okay, so this is not an action item, but you are asking for direction from the board to be able to sign the letter. So I would certainly support the request and just open it to the rest of the board members for your deliberation.
I have a question.
Yes, Tammy.
Are the other counties going to be joining in a similar letter? Or is this a joint letter that all of us are,
It's co-signed by
I mean, I
everyone in
see
the back.
everybody here, so are we in a process of going before their boards for this?
We are. So the joint letter, we are going before their boards for inclusion of a policy and the discussion of rural issues and our concern about funding. The request for State Route 4, that's just going before our board. I know that Amador is taking a request, I believe, for State Route 88. I believe, if I understand correctly, they were mentioned in the previous ITSP, but not included as a focus route. So I think we have an uphill battle on our request and making the case on State Route 4. But nonetheless, it's a critical corridor for us and our #1 priority, so we'll do that. So the only letter before multiple boards would be the shared county.
Other comments? Support or otherwise? Yes, Jim.
I just think both letters very well written, and hopefully, like you say, there's probably not much of a chance of winning, but at least to be in the fight and putting our position forward, I think it's very important. So I think it sounds good.
I agree.
Anyone else? So I sense by everybody's nods that we are in general support of signing both letters this evening, so that is what we'll do. Is there any public comment on this item before I make it a fait accompli? Okay, Melissa, we'll go ahead and sign those at the end of the meeting then. Okay, let's move on to item number 18, staff reports. I'll start with our executive director.
Perfect. I just wanted to update the council. A few months back, we had heard from the San Andreas community. They expressed concern about panhandlers trying to get bus tickets and going to local businesses and customers and requesting money for bus purchases. We were able to identify the situation being from the county jail and those being released without transportation. So we've since met with the sheriff and his staff, and on a pilot basis, we've provided them with 400 sort of go-anywhere bus purchases that they're free to use, so that as prisoners are released, that they'll have some form of transportation. I was sort of shocked by the numbers. I think they release almost 200 people a month. Almost half of those don't have transportation. And so from their perspective, the community's concern is very real, and that they too are having issues with that, and people hanging out in the community that just don't have any other means to get home or to get where they're headed. So hopefully that will be used and we'll get to see the benefit of that. And if it does work, we'd like to bring back something to the Council of Governments to consider on a long-term basis. I think that's all I have to update.
Is there a way to track that, the use? I mean,
We've been talking about that. For right now, we've turned them over to the Sheriff's Department, and we've given them to the discretion to use them for the prisoners that are released, if they need a ride and they know who those people are, or deputies if they're on patrol and we have someone that is hanging out and doesn't have anywhere to go, that they might also have the opportunity to give them a bus ride. One of the things that they found is the food bank is quite an attraction. So they said it is becoming an issue, such an issue that they're now surveying in San Andreas to find out where everybody's coming from and where they need to go. So hopefully we will have more information from the sheriff's office. But they said the food bank is a big draw, and actually drawing people from out of county, and then once they're here, they don't have rides back to the Central Valley. So perhaps even with the inner city service, we might have some opportunity to provide a connection to Stockton. But something that they're gathering data on. Yeah, not just from a transportation perspective, but from their local police perspective.
Yeah, I think it's important to track it to determine if it's successful or not, or working, and who's using and where they're going, and those kinds of numbers would be helpful.
Very good.
So did you give them a little form that they could
Yes.
make it easy on them to fill out?
No,
Or
we
just
did
any
not. We
tickets?
really wanted to just make it as easy as possible for the deputies and the jail to be able to release this information and make it available. So we can work with them on how best to track it. I'm just interested to see how fast they burn through those tickets. We don't have a mechanism for tracking them with transit to see how many get turned back in, but we could work with Cynthia on maybe tracking it on that end. I think from our perspective, we wanted to address the immediate community concern, which was validated by the department, which is very real. And then to the level by which we're able to do that, I think is when that will unfold as we work with the sheriff's department. We had explored the opportunity. Some of them are released with a credit card, or they have a $200 limit. But what they're finding is that their priority use for those funds, it would not be purchasing a bus ticket. So, just through exploration with the deputies, we're just trying to find a way to help everybody do the right thing. But I think we can definitely continue to work with them to identify, or transit to identify a system to track how beneficial.
So that, I mean, it could be as simple as a different ticket with different information on it.
And then when the system receives it, they're able to keep those, yeah. I think I was just shocked by the number of people that don't have a ride once released. And it was more than half.
Okay, anything else, Melissa?
That's all I have.
Any other staff reports? Come on, Jim, I know you're busting the seams there, wanting to give a report.
The year-end
All right, I will.
report?
Oh, okay.
My path has crossed the falls for various times over the last 20 years. That's always been good to me, good for me. And I have to publicly say that you are a man of great integrity. You're the consummate citizen public servant, and I have great respect for you. And I admire you greatly.
Well, thank you, Jim. You saved the best for last, thank you. Okay, council member reports tonight. I'll start with Jim.
I have nothing to report.
Debbie?
Nothing to report.
Nothing.
All right.
I would just report that thanks to Deborah's little arm twisting, I participated in Stuff the Bus on the 22nd there at Angels Camp Save Mart. I must say the patrons were very generous that day in the rain and so forth, and I left before they closed up, but they hauled out a bunch of food midday, and my guess is by the end of the day they had a second load. So,
All right, very good. Good job. John, it's on to you.
Yeah, I have to share Jim's comments. I have had the pleasure of working with Paul on a number of different types of projects over the years. One of the enjoyable facets of working on this board is just the quality of the board members that are here. And we're going to miss you. I don't know if everybody recognizes or realizes, but I think this is your last meeting as a COG board member. So thank you very much for all the service you've done here and the mentorship you've given all of us in handling the meetings and leading us through these times.
Well, it's certainly been my pleasure as well, so I'll turn this over to our vice chair, and please don't let it die for lack of emotion.
We have our last item is resolution number fiscal year 1519, acknowledging the dedication and commitment of Paul Stein, serving as a citizen and public member of the Calaveras Council of Government. And I have a copy of the resolution that we are going to present to Mr. Stein, and I would like to read it into the record before I call for a vote. This is a resolution acknowledging the dedication and commitment of Mr. Paul Stein, serving as a member to the Calaveras Council of Governments. Whereas Paul Stein has been a citizen an elected member serving on the Council of Governments for the past total of 12 years. And whereas Paul Stein has reliably served the county and city and strived to work for the long-term betterment of Calaveras County and its citizens throughout his term, and whereas Mr. Stein's experience and expertise played a valuable role in his time as a council member, and whereas Mr. Stein has given generously of his time in the best interest of Calaveras County and has served the community and citizens of the county in a professional, dedicated, and ethical manner, and whereas in the 12 years of serving as a citizen and elected member on the Calaveras COG Council, Mr. Stein has gained the respect of his fellow council members, Calaveras COG staff, and the community. Therefore, be it resolved by the Calaveras Council of Government, County of Calaveras, State of California, that the dedication and commitment by Paul Stein is hereby recognized and his service to the county is acknowledged and appreciated. The foregoing resolution was passed and adopted by the Calaveras Council of Government at a regular meeting thereof held on the 3rd day of December 2014 by the following vote. And before I call for the vote, I would like to know if there's any other council members that would like to make additional comments. And Mr. Stein?
I would. Paul, I just want to thank you for your service, not only to COG, but to Calaveras County and Board of Supervisors and the number of other agencies and commissions and committees and everything else you served on. I've always looked up to you as a mentor of sorts. I've always appreciated your words and everything you have given, and it's been a pleasure to serve with you on this particular board.
Thank you,
Yeah, I'd like to ditto that. Anytime that you stick your nose into the public arena, sometimes it comes at you pretty hard. We do that. So it takes a tough person to do that. And the years that you put in, I appreciate the fact that you put in your service this long in the county. I'm sure that's better for it, so thank you.
Cliff. You bet. Thank you very much.
I would just only add that, I've been aware of your public service over the years by just reading in the newspapers from a distance. Never really had much occasion to meet you or talk with you when you're on the Board of Supervisors, but I can certainly say these 2 years spent with you up here at this DS, I was so impressed with your leadership style, your expertise, and just your knowledge that you have given back to the community over these years, and you'll be missed.
Oh, thank you, Wes. You bet. Thank you very much.
I would just like to add on behalf of the staff, oh, I'm sorry, Jim,
No,
please.
that's
Jim.
okay. The risk of being overly effusive with everyone else is...
Oh, please be
Respect Paul. I've known him, worked for him, worked with him, gosh, for over 20 years since he took over from Tommy Taylor up in District 2, and he helped educate me in Calaveras County when I was working for the county. Got to cross paths with him in Sacramento, and he's working with Fish and Game, and it's been a pleasure, although somewhat short, unfortunately short, to work with Paul on the POW board. So I've learned a lot and really appreciate everything you've given to me personally and to the COG and citizens in general. So
Thank you, Jim. You bet. Thank you very much. You bet.
Okay. Now that we have all made our comments, I'll ask for call for the vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes on unanimous vote.
Well, it has been a great pleasure of mine to be a part of this board at 2 different times. I feel very proud of the fact that I was on the board when we created the COG, having served as the chair at that time for about 7 years. And you know, the second iteration came when a couple of friends of mine, Tom Taylor and Gary Toffanelli, asked me to rejoin the board and try to make some changes. And, you know, I really didn't realize what I was getting myself into the second time, but I can tell you this, that having made the changes that we did and bringing in Melissa and watching you create your team here, I mean, it's just been absolutely sublime. You know, it's this is a well-run organization now, and I don't know that I had any part in that, but I was able to sit and watch it happen. And you know, the fact that we brought you in has been, you know, a huge change, not only in the county, but you know, for this board in particular. And I would think that you know, as time goes by, we're going to see, you know, more of your leadership style as well. So, but it has been, you know, a distinct pleasure of mine to serve with each of you individually. I know you know all of you well, and I have a great degree of admiration for each of you, and I know I'm leaving it in very good hands, and that makes me feel good, because when I did come in the second time, it was on a little bit of a slippery slope, you know, and so we've made a tremendous change here, and staff understands that, and I was you know, blessed to be a part of it. So thank you very much for your encouragement and sending me on my way, and good hands, you know, so thank you, Melissa.
No, thank you, Paul. And on behalf of our staff, you know, we've been honored to work for you. And you've definitely been a leader and a mentor to our entire team. So we're thankful to you for that, and we will miss you.
Well, my phone works. And you
Very good.
Well, thank you very much for the resolution as well. That was very nice. You know, if I could just live up to half of that, I would be happy. Okay, anything else tonight? It's your meeting now.
Oh, it's my meeting. Okay, no further business. The meeting is adjourned, and our next scheduled meeting of the COG is February 7th, 2015.
It's your first order of business. Adjournment.